gave my stepmom the perfect Mother's Day gift and then stood in silence, watching her expression shift as she realized what it really meant. When my dad, Mark, married Vera, I was only 11. My birth mom, Anna, had passed away 13 months earlier, melanoma, aggressive as hell, faster than anyone could prepare for. One morning, she was complaining of a headache, and just 82 days later, I stood at her grave wearing an unworn black dress with still attached tags. My dad waited exactly 1 year before bringing Vera into our home. She was the PR manager at my mother's family's investment firm, with a flawless white smile and long blonde hair, the kind of woman who wore heels to other people's backyard barbecues. "She brought my dad back to happiness," he explained softly but firmly. "I need you to try, Kate." And I did try. I helped Vera unpack, carrying box after box of designer shoes into the room that once held Mom's gardening clothes. I nodded politely while she rearranged everything, swapping out family photos for abstract art to open up the space. I even smiled while she transformed Mom's vegetable garden into a meditation yard because growing your own food was too rustic. For 3 years, I played the grateful stepdaughter. I attended every company event with Vera wearing the dresses she picked. I endured her circle of friends, those wine-sipping ladies who praised me for acting mature beyond my years. I masked my pain behind perfect grades and fake smiles. My dad didn't notice when I stopped smiling. He was too wrapped up in Vera's event calendar, too busy expanding her client network, enjoying romantic getaways and wine-tasting soirees. Meanwhile, I slept with Mom's old sweater for months, long after it lost her scent. Vera made efforts in her own way. Expensive birthday gifts, always items she wanted herself. Lavish dinner parties where she introduced me as our daughter to people who didn't even remember my name. She even set up a college fund, never forgetting to tell everyone how generous she was. But when I got my first period, I learned from Google what to do. When I dreamed of Mom dying, only the family dog comforted me. I was trying. Honestly. I convinced myself Vera couldn't be that bad, that everything she did, from redecorating to renaming me Kate V in my dad's phone, was just the awkwardness of a woman who didn't know how to parent a grieving child. I joined her cocktail parties, stood by the imported cheese board, smiled along with shallow compliments from strangers. I wore the dresses Vera chose, learned her vague, sly lines for business events. I practiced smiling at the right moment, angling my body for the company photographer to capture the harmonious family image. And most importantly, I wasn't allowed to remember my mom. No mention of her at dinner, no displaying the drawing I made in 2nd grade that still hung in the hallway. No keeping Mom's favorite vase on the table. "People need to learn to let go," Vera once said, eyes fixed on her phone. "No one likes someone stuck in the past." My dad, Mark, lowered his glass of red wine and said calmly, "Vera's right, Kate. We have to look ahead." I smiled, I nodded, and I carried on with the performance. I studied hard, straight A's. I joined the debate team because Vera said it was excellent for college applications. I volunteered at charity events she sponsored, where she introduced me as the future heir, her confident smile never fading. Sometimes I wondered if Vera genuinely loved me, or if I was just a prop in the perfect picture she wanted to paint. Maybe both. The moment that stung most was when I almost believed the act. One afternoon, I tumbled down the stairs in my rush to get to school. Vera lovingly wrapped my ankle and made me hot cocoa with a gummy bear. I was genuinely moved until I overheard her on the phone giggling to a friend. The more emotionally attached she gets, the easier to steer her future. From then on, I started journaling again. Not to pour out feelings, but to document everything, every word, every gesture, every time Vera brought up money, the company, power, inheritance. I wasn't a grieving child trying to please a stepmother anymore. I was a character in her play, but I was rewriting the script. The breaking point came in 10th grade. My school was staging a spring play, and I landed the lead. For the first time in years, I felt truly alive, not just existing. I spent weeks rehearsing after school, memorizing lines late into the night, designing my own costume, rediscovering the joy I once had when I performed for my mom. Opening night fell on the same evening as one of Vera's major events, a gala fundraising dinner for her company's scholarship fund. She loved any occasion to show off her newest haute couture gown and strategic connections. I dared to hope, just this once, that my dad would say, "Kate's worked so hard. We should go see her." Instead, when I told her about the performance, Vera didn't bother to look up from her phone. "Sorry, Kate, but you'll come with us that night. The Preston family will be there. Their son just got into Harvard Law." "This is a key opportunity to build connections," she added, as if I were just a piece in her personal PR strategy. My dad looked like he might object at first, but then Vera gently laid her hand on his arm, and that was the end of it. "It's just a high school play, sweetheart," my dad said. "There'll be other chances." I said nothing. Just went to my room, shut the door, and opened the old wooden box my mom, Anna, had left behind. Inside were her wedding ring, a lock of my baby hair, and a notebook I had never dared to open. I had been too scared to read what she left behind, too scared to face the real pain. That night, I sat on the floor, back against my bed, desk lamp casting a soft glow, and read each page through muffled sobs. Most of it was what I expected, memories she treasured, hopes she had for my future, gentle advice she never had time to say out loud. But the last page was different. If you're reading this, Kate, I need you to know about the safe deposit box. The key is taped inside the cover of this notebook. What you find in there will change everything. I'm sorry. I froze, my hand trembling. The small silver key, etched with the bank's name, sat silently, like a secret waiting to be revealed. The next day, I faked being sick and skipped school. I took a bus to First National, the bank my mom's family had used for 3 generations. Mr. Elliott, the branch manager, saw me and nodded slowly, like he'd been expecting this day. Anna always said one day you'd come, he said, leading me into a storage room in the back. Inside the heavy metal box was a USB drive, several folders of documents, and a letter in my mother's unmistakable handwriting. My dearest Kate, the letter began. By now, Vera has likely become a full part of your life. I've known about her for a long time. I read the letter twice, my hands trembling nonstop. My mom had discovered my dad's affair with Vera 6 months before her cancer diagnosis. She had hired a private investigator. The envelope contained copies of the reports, hotel receipts, surveillance photos of them together in 3 different cities, while my mom was picking me up from art class or caring for my grandfather at the nursing home. Page after page, there were printed text messages, some as simple as, "Same room tonight," but others made my stomach churn. "Anna's taking Kate to her mom's this weekend. Come over. I'm tired of hiding. Wish she'd just disappear." That last one was from my dad, sent 4 months before my mom showed symptoms. Then came the financial part, spreadsheets, reports, bank statements. My mom had discovered that Mark and Vera were slowly draining funds from my maternal family's trust, the one meant to protect me and preserve our generational legacy. They created shell companies, used fake names and offshore accounts to funnel millions across countries. It was all meticulously recorded, transfers, fake investments, insider deals. They had started this long before her diagnosis. My dad had once been an ambitious financial advisor, but it was my mom, Anna, who brought him into the company, guided him step by step to partner. I thought I lived in the house my grandparents left behind. I thought Dad ran the company my mom co-founded with my grandfather. But in truth, my mom had quietly transferred all major assets to me through a hidden trust she created with her own legal team 2 weeks before she died. The hardest part to read came at the end. Mom talked about her health. She wrote that after their anniversary party, she started feeling off. Headaches, nausea, dizziness, symptoms that came and went without explanation. They only happened after the meals Mark cooked just for me. She had secretly done blood and hair tests. The results showed heavy metal buildup, consistent with prolonged poisoning. She couldn't outright accuse anyone, but her suspicion was clear. The doctors couldn't explain how rapidly her condition deteriorated. I can't prove anything, and maybe by the time you read this, it won't matter to me anymore. But I couldn't leave you in their hands without any protection. The final page listed 3 names: a forensic accountant, a criminal finance lawyer, and a retired judge, Judge Hale, who had been a close friend of my grandfather. I sat there for a long time, the private room at the bank feeling sealed off from the world. Grief, confusion, all my emotions condensed into something colder, sharper, heavier. I was no longer just a grieving orphan. I was the only one who knew the full truth, and I wouldn't let it stay buried. I didn't call the police. I didn't confront my dad. I didn't scream, didn't cry, didn't run. I did the one thing Vera and Mark would never see coming. I kept playing the perfect daughter. For the next 2 years, I took my performance to a whole new level. I became Vera's pride and joy, scholarship recipient, honor society member, the face of student welcome events hosted by the company. I wore the dresses she picked, gave polished speeches at functions, and called her Mom in front of every outsider. She beamed like she'd just won the greatest award of her life. Nights were a different story. In my bedroom, the last truly safe space I had, I began collecting. I downloaded hundreds of documents from emails Mark carelessly left open on his laptop. I secretly photographed contracts, invoices, memos, and stored everything on an encrypted hard drive. I built a command center behind my bookshelf, hiding a small safe that held all the evidence. I recorded dinner conversations, analyzed missing funds Vera brushed off in financial reports. I listened, I remembered, I cross-checked. I pieced everything together with surgical precision. 6 months after opening the bank box, I reached out to the 3 people my mom had named: Joel, the forensic accountant; Monica, the financial crimes attorney; and Judge Hale, my grandfather's trusted friend. I lied and said I had a debate retreat for the weekend, then went to meet them at Judge Hale's house, an old, dignified home in a quiet suburban neighborhood. When I opened my file folder and began my presentation, they listened without interrupting, without doubting. By the 3rd page of the transfer logs, Joel closed his eyes for a long moment. Monica froze, then let out a whispered curse. Judge Hale looked at me, his wise, weathered eyes steady, and said with slow, firm conviction, "Anna was one of the most honorable women I've ever known. And now I understand why she trusted you." He paused, then asked, "What do you want to do, Kate?" I'd thought about that question 100 times. I could turn over everything, have them locked up. I could disappear, wait until I turned 18 to claim my inheritance. I could go to the press, destroy them instantly. But I knew exactly what I wanted, to finish what my mom started. Step by step, with precision, no mercy, no regrets. "I want to learn everything," I said, "about finance, law, the company, so that when I take it all back, they'll have nowhere left to run." Judge Hale nodded. "Anna said you'd say that." From that day forward, I lived 2 lives. By day, I was Kate, the ideal daughter in Vera's eyes, smart, charming, obedient, the pride of the Mark and Vera Collins household. I attended networking events, sat quietly at board meetings as the future heir, and acted interested when Vera explained why I should major in public relations to align with the family brand. But at night, I was someone else, a student of the 3 most capable people my mother ever trusted. Joel taught me to read financial reports the way others read crime novels, every number a clue. I learned to trace money through layered accounts, spot shell corporations, and follow tangled ownership chains that would seem invisible unless you knew what to look for, money circling back to Mark under the guise of investments. Monica, with eyes sharp as knives, taught me corporate law, legal loopholes, and how a misplaced comma in a contract could shift an entire company's ownership. I learned how to draft lawsuits, structure shareholder agreements, and protect assets in inheritance disputes. And Judge Hale didn't just teach me the law. He taught me how to survive in a world where good people are often buried beneath polished cruelty. He introduced me to people who had once respected my mother: CEOs, seasoned investors, financial regulators, people who had watched her company morph into a money-laundering vehicle under Mark and Vera, and who were waiting for someone with enough clarity and credibility to bring the truth back to light. I studied, memorized, analyzed, debated, not just to reclaim what was mine, but to understand how my strong, brilliant mother had been pushed to despair in the very home she built. I didn't neglect school either. I graduated high school a year early, with a flawless academic record. Vera and Mark were so thrilled they threw a backyard party on the very lawn that used to be my mom's vegetable garden. None of my real friends were there, just Mark's coworkers, Vera's PR buddies, and the photographer she hired to capture family moments. Yale accepted her early. "She's a genius," Vera said, arm around me, grinning wide. I smiled too, because while they dreamed of me taking over the company as an obedient puppet, I knew better than anyone in less than 2 years that Boardroom would belong to me, not as an heir, as its rightful owner. The summer before college, Vera surprised me with a proposal over lunch at a vintage Italian restaurant downtown, the kind of place she liked to be seen. She took my hand across the table, her gaze misty with affection I'd never seen in her before, and said, "Kate, you're my daughter in every way that matters. Let me make it official before you head off to college. I want this to be real, on paper." I looked into her eyes that had once seen me as an inconvenience turned strategic asset, and smiled sweetly. "Nothing would make me happier," I said, my voice soft as a breeze. "A great actress doesn't need to rehearse when the role runs in her blood." Vera was genuinely moved. I felt her grip my hand a little tighter, and for the first time, I realized she truly believed she had won. My dad, Mark, couldn't hide his pride. He started talking about a weekend trip to the Hamptons to celebrate our new family. They mentioned the Prestons, longtime friends in finance, and their son, who had just gotten into Harvard Law. "We should reconnect," Vera said, clinking her glass of white wine against mine. "You're a grown woman now, and I want you to start stepping into the investment world officially." I nodded, even as my mind flashed to the financial analysis I'd compiled, showing that Preston Technologies, teetering on bankruptcy, had just been secretly bailed out by one of Mark's shell companies. That night, I called my team. We met at Judge Hale's house, our war room for major decisions. "They want to adopt me legally," I said, placing the adoption paperwork I'd received from their lawyer on the table. "Does this affect our plan?" Monica quickly spread the documents out, scanning every line. "Actually, it could work in our favor," she said, lips curling into a thin smile. The adoption process requires full asset disclosures, income declarations, and financial commitments. We'll get a clearer picture of their true wealth, and it helps establish mutual financial entanglement. That'll be crucial in court. What about my mother's trust? I asked, my heart pounding. No impact, Joel confirmed. The trust your mom set up is separate, locked, and legally irrevocable. Even after legal adoption, Vera has no rights to it. Judge Hale sat in thought, then looked at me. We've traced 67% of the missing funds, he said. More than enough for criminal charges. But the suspicion about your mother's health? I clenched my fist. We leave that for later, one battle at a time. Now it's time to go on the offensive. 2 weeks later was Mother's Day. Vera always turned the day into a performance. Every year, she threw an elaborate garden party, fresh flowers, uniformed waitstaff, custom menus, a professional photographer, and a tearful speech posted online. This year was special. The event would mark my official adoption. The guest list was 3 pages long, every major investment figure in the region, journalists, finance bloggers, potential partners, and the power moms Vera wanted to impress. She hired a luxury event planning firm to turn the backyard into a dazzling set with imported roses, French wine, and a live string quartet. I spent the entire week preparing my gift. Not a ribbon-wrapped box, not a designer item for Vera to flaunt on Instagram. But the truth, contained in a silver USB drive, placed in a velvet purple box engraved with the words, "To Mom, with all my love." That morning was perfect. Soft sun, a gentle breeze, the exact kind of day Vera always prayed for when she documented her life. I stepped into her dressing room, lined with nearly identical cream-colored dresses. She held up 2, one Dior, one Chanel, and turned to ask me, "Which one do you think is prettier?" "Chanel," I said without hesitation. She nodded immediately, setting aside the Dior, the same dress I'd once chosen for another occasion, which she'd rejected. By noon, the guests began arriving. They strolled through the garden, sipping champagne, posing for mother-daughter photos beside a giant floral backdrop that read, "Love doesn't require blood." Vera led me onto the garden stage, hand in hand, like we were at a wedding. Today, I'm not just a mother in spirit. I am officially Kate's legal mother, the daughter who's made me believe in motherhood in a way I never thought possible. Applause erupted. Camera flashes went off. Tears, real or otherwise, sparkled in the sun. I pulled the velvet box from my dress pocket. "I have a gift for you too, Mom," I said, handing it to her in front of hundreds of eyes. Vera opened it and saw the silver USB. She looked at me, her smile a bit stiff. "What's this, sweetheart?" "Everything you've ever tried to hide," I said, then turned to the tech crew. "Play it." The giant LED screen behind the stage lit up. The screen lit up with images, accounting documents, hotel photos, email excerpts signed Mark Collins, offshore money transfer charts, my mom's hair test results, and a screenshot of a text that read, "Wish she'd just disappear." Everything, unfiltered, uncut, ruthless. And Vera, standing in what was supposed to be the happiest day of her life, could only gape in silence. For the first few seconds, she said nothing. Just stood there, frozen, eyes wide, still clutching the purple velvet box, as if unable to grasp that her entire world was crumbling beneath her. Then her lips began to tremble. She forced a laugh, tried to wave it off. "This is a joke, right?" She chuckled nervously, turning to me. "Kate, you're joking?" I didn't answer. I didn't have to. The whispers had already begun spreading through the crowd. The same admiring glances were now laced with disdain. A few guests, seasoned investors, wives wrapped in layers of polished privilege, started stepping back, as if being too close to Vera might somehow stain them. Mark pushed through the crowd, rushing to the stage. He glanced at the screen, then at Vera. "What the hell is going on here?" I stood between them, the people I once called Dad and Mom, and watched as they both flailed in stunned confusion. For the first time in my life, I didn't owe anyone an explanation. Vera snatched the USB from my hand, screaming at the tech crew, "Turn it off! Shut this down!" But they didn't comply. One of them, Monica's associate, gave me a calm nod and let the footage roll. An audio clip of Mark discussing Anna's convenient death over dinner in Palm Springs. A reporter from Finance Insider was at the party. I had made sure of that, pulled out her phone and began filming. The media storm erupted from there. Friends vanished, business partners withdrew, minority shareholders dumped their stock. And the next day, when the recording went viral on Twitter and aired on the evening news, the company my mother once founded plummeted into free fall. I didn't laugh, I didn't gloat, I just felt empty. Vera disappeared from the public eye for 3 days. On the 4th, she appeared on a local news station, eyes puffy, claiming she had been betrayed by the daughter she loved like her own. She lived under my roof for years. Who could have known? I turned off the TV. Not because I didn't care, but because I'd heard enough of Vera's scripted stories. I didn't need to answer anymore. I had turned her into a play no one wanted to keep watching. That afternoon, I received an email from the company's legal team. The board had called an emergency meeting to reassess executive authority and shareholder structure following the scandal. I sat alone in the room they once called Kate's study, once filled with phony awards and fake family portraits, and quietly thought, Mom, it's starting. The board meeting took place in the glass-walled room on the 26th floor, where my mother once sat every Monday morning, sipping Earl Grey while reviewing the weekly reports. That day, I walked in as a legal shareholder, the primary beneficiary of Anna L. Collins' trust. Mark had been suspended as CEO. Vera, stripped of any formal role, was denied entry. I wore the navy blue suit my mother had worn in the photo of her standing next to the newly unveiled company building. Not too flashy, not too soft, just enough to signal I wasn't here to negotiate. The first to speak was Eleanor, the board's senior member, once my mother's close friend. Kate, she said, do you have anything you'd like to say before we vote? I nodded, stepped to the center of the room. My voice wasn't loud, but it was clear. My mother founded this company on one principle: trust. She believed in long-term value, in transparency, in using power to create opportunity, not to build a persona. She was betrayed. I won't be. I outlined my plan for reform. Auditing all subsidiaries, terminating contracts with entities linked to shady transactions, implementing independent financial reviews, and temporarily restructuring legal oversight. No one objected. The vote passed quickly. I was appointed interim trustee while the transition was formalized. As I left the boardroom, the sun had begun to set. Its rays streamed through the glass, catching an old photo of my mother smiling with her founding team. I paused, gently touching the frame. Outside, reporters were still waiting. Someone asked if I had a statement. I stepped up to the microphone, looking directly into the lens. I didn't come here for revenge, I began. I came to restore what was twisted and to protect what should never have been lost. A reporter raised their hand. Do you have anything you'd like to say to Vera and Mark? I paused for a moment, then replied softly, I don't need to say anything. I gave them a gift, the truth, and they chose to destroy themselves because they believed I'd never dare open it. I turned away, stepped into the car, and shut the door behind me. No applause, no music, just an ending that landed exactly where it should, cold, quiet, and irreversible. Just like my mother taught me, justice